I'm Mick McCarthy.
And I'm Tony Pulis.
And welcome to The Managers. One of the most famous last day survivals, Luton's 1-0 win over Manchester City, keeping Luton up and sending City down.
I have no excuse for running on the pitch, but sadly a lot of people think of me because they've seen the clip a few times, but they can't remember the fact that 5 years previously we'd got better and better and better.
Your time at Tottenham comes to an end.
Yep.
How hard was that to take?
Very difficult. It was a difficult time for me.
Right, Ton, here we go. Our guest this week, he's enjoyed one of the longest periods in football. He's overseen nearly 1,000 matches as a manager, enjoying successful spells at Luton Town, Tottenham, Leicester City and Sheffield Wednesday. He's also worked as a director of football, and in recent years has been working as a scout, notably for Tottenham and Celtic. It's our pleasure to welcome to The Managers, David Pleat. David, great to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Good to see you, Mick.
About time we got you on, Dave. Hey.
Oh, very nice, Tony. I'm not doing anything particularly, so.
Yeah. So anyway, let's start, Dave. Mum and Dad, what influence did you have from the family at a young age?
Well, whatever I was going to do, they were always supportive. And if I decided, because I was fortunate, you could say, or did well at schoolboy level, I played for Nottingham Boys, the county side, England schoolboys, played at Wembley. Remember a classic game with Scotland, which I always remind George Graham of because he was number 10 for Scotland. England won 5-3. Barry Fry was my inside right, young Bedford boy before he went to Man United. He was just thinking about his signing on fee at the time. He was 15. And he's still got a photo in his bedroom of him heading a goal, but he doesn't mention it came from my cross. But it does. When
Brilliant, Dave.
But, no, anyway.
We're not going to have no problems with Dave's memory today then, Mick.
No,
and a few clubs came knocking and I wanted to stay at home, particularly why, I say, I'd make a joke, it was my mother's cooking.
Yes.
But no, I stayed on for my O-levels and went to Forest. Did quite well early days. Had a glittering career that went downwards a little bit through various circumstances, change of managers, injuries. Played for England schoolboys and England youth. Played with England youth with people like Len Badger Shaw, Tommy Smith, Lou Chatterley, John Samuels.
Yeah.
Good group of players. And then at Forest, the manager Johnny Carey, and then Andy Beattie.
Yeah,
way before your time, maybe, Tony.
Yeah,
they
they
have different decisions. And they bought a boy from Newport, for enough, called Mike Keir. And anyway, there was another out, Chris Crowe from Wolves. And the bottom line was I saw myself getting sidelined a bit, and I had a mentor, Peter Taylor, Brian Clough's Peter Taylor.
Yes,
lived not far away, about a mile away, and he said you need first team football. I was 18.
What was Peter doing then?
Peter was still goalkeeping and he hadn't gone to Burton Albion yet as manager, where he was very successful. Yeah. And then, of course, Brian came calling from Hartlepool and he went to Hartlepool. But I remember ringing, when Luton came in for me, I remember ringing my parents. I couldn't get a hold of them. They were in holiday in Bognor Regis, actually. Yeah. And Peter Taylor, I spoke to Peter. Peter said, look, you're 18. What are you going to do? Spend the rest of your life in the reserves? You need first-team football. You need the crowd. You need the stimulus of playing with men. It's time you went. I made a bad decision. I went to Luton. I was offered, and all the players said to me, well, you do well. You got to move, you get the money. I got £400 signing on fee, and when I got it, I think we were playing at Oldham and they were on the team bus, and the secretary said to me, oh, incidentally, we've got your bonus this week. They taxed it, the £400. I was £8,000 the transfer fee was, which may be translated now to a few more pounds than that. But there you go. I was a very promising schoolboy and youth player that slowly disintegrated over a period of time. Very interesting coaching, of course, and eventually, after a spell at Luton, which wasn't good, I got a GC O-level, Peterborough, Shrewsbury, Nuneaton, went round the country learning about geography. Finished up at Peterborough with Jim Eiley.
Jim Eiley, he was my
first manager Barnsley.
Barnsley.
I came to see him, Mick, believe it or not. I can tell you a story when you came off the field and you made a bit of a gesture. I was at that game. I think I was watching Otto Would I have been?
Oh, yes. Wow, blimey. Anton Otto, fabulous little player.
Left half, I think, as it was then. Anyway, Peter Taylor rang me and said, there's a job at Nuneaton. I think Maurice Setters might have been in for it, and David Gibson, the old Leicester inside forward, said, but I made sure you'll get it. I said, Peter, I was 28. I said, I'm not sure if I'm ready for it. He said, David, he said, rest assured, there's a load of crap out there managing. You'll be all right.
Nuneaton in 71, yeah?
Yes.
So Peter Taylor was instrumental in that.
Peter Taylor was
Was he your mentor?
I would suggest he was, yeah. He thought a lot of me as a player. He thought I could go quite high at one time.
What was he like as a person, Dave?
He was an interesting character. If you talked about a player, he knew straight away, can he play or can't he? Don't give me all that shit. Can he play or can't he? He didn't have to analyse a player too many times. He once asked me, I was at Shrewsbury, who was the best centre-half in the league? And I hesitated. He says, oh, dear me, you should know. McFarlane, Tranmere Rovers, straight up there, signed McFarlane. And of course, when he first went with Clough to Derby, when he came after Hartlepool's, where they did very well.
Yeah.
When they came to Derby, there was another player I recommended who turned out absolutely terrible, Pat Wright, who was at Shrewsbury, fullback.
Yeah.
But overall, they made some great signings at Derby, and I always respected them. And Clough was an amazing character.
We talk about recruitment and that, and how it's analysts are doing it now. So we'll go back just slightly, if you don't mind. Like
yes.
You tell us what you used to do, Dave.
I still see you out watching games.
Yes, well, I watch games. I like watching football. I think you learn something from every game, or you see something that you memorise. The most I ever watched a play was, I think, about 6 times, and that was a guy called David Pleat, who was an inside forward, who came to me from Walsall 3 times, maximum. And your instincts have got your first instincts. If you watch too much, you've got no chance. You'll find a downside. You should speak to as many people as possible just to get an overall idea. You watch them at home and you must watch them away.
Yeah.
But I would say no more than 3 times. If you can't decide. When I was at Tottenham, one of the scouts, a nice man, Alan Randall, he went to watch a player at QPR. I said, you've seen him before, haven't you? I said, yes, I've seen him 6 times. I said, well, what do you do? He said, well, I just put my reports in. I don't decide. But surely at the bottom of the report, you have to say yes or no. You have to give a definitive and then stop looking at him.
David, our scouts used to put clubs would put, watch him again.
Roger used to do it in pencil. So Roger would do it in pencil, and if that player then he'd say no in pencil, but if that player turned out to be a player, he'd have scrubbed it out.
Yeah, that's a beauty. Yeah.
Dave Bowman, my chief scout, used to come out with them. Watch him again. Well,
you know Roger, Dave.
Yeah, you need a good recruitment. So important. I mean, if you look at all the top teams, you can talk about the managers. I remember reading a book by Dave Sexton, and it was a book about counterpunching. Actually, it was a family of boxers.
Yeah.
Dave Sexton was a top coach.
Yeah.
And I remember reading in that book someone saying about what influence does a manager have, what percentage, how much. It's about players. If I've got a good group of players that I inherit, or I'm lucky enough to stay for 3 years and recruit a few good ones, then I'll have a chance. But he tried to put it in percentages, and he said maybe 10%.
Yeah.
You've got to get, if you can accumulate good players, you've got a chance.
Yeah, totally.
Anyway, we were on. After your Nuneaton spell comes Luton in 1978, and a glory period for the club begins. You win the 2nd Division title in 1982. What made that lead? And I played against that team. It was a good team. What made that Luton team so good?
I was fortunate that I could look at players at a lower level and give them a platform. Luton had a poor ground. We never used to, like most managers, bring them to the ground when we interviewed them. We took them to a nice hotel, as every manager would do. I accumulated players from Nuneaton, where I'd been, so I knew Kirk Stevens right back. Larne in Ireland, Maldonaghy was £5,000. Maldonaghy.
He was a good player.
Brian Steen, Edgware Town.
Yeah.
Brian Steen was a magnificent forward. Never got one England cap. Never got the accolades that he deserved.
So you win the league. Sorry, you win the 2nd Division in '82, and saying what made the team so good, because I remember playing against it. You're a brilliant team. So tell us about that.
Strange enough, Mick, we only lost 3 games that season. One which was at Barnsley on a terrible evening, torrential rain. We lost 4-3, and I remember the players were distraught in the dressing room. They weren't used to losing. We quickly picked it up because we had 1 or 2 good characters. And I suppose the major character in the dressing room, which is so important, is a good captain. And I had signed Brian Horton from Brighton, and I'd swapped him with Tony Grealish, who was a good player, Irish international, Republic. And I remember Peter Taylor, who was at Brighton. I remember asking Peter Taylor about Horton and his usual expression, all day long, all day long. So I took, Horton was a great captain and a very good conduit between me and the players. You know, they trusted him.
But Mick Harford was playing, you know, was
Mick
it Brian,
came later.
Brian, did he? Or Brian
Mick came in the second spell.
Oh, did he?
I came back to Luton a few years afterwards, and then I had another team with Foster, Harford, strong physical players. I remember Steve was very good as well at centre half.
He was.
He had this lovely habit of going like that all the time to the fullbacks.
That's not a bad habit.
No, but the team that got promotion, it was anticlimax, mate. We won it with about 7 games to go. And the lovely thing was we beat our nearest rivals, friendly rivals, supposed to be, Watford, with Graham Taylor. And of course, we were kind of friendly rivals, but it was a kind of an inside jealousy. Not jealousy, but...
competitiveness,
because they played a different style of football. They played very straightforward football, long passes,
they were direct football,
long passes, well coached, and that's very important. But they had the benefit of Elton's back in at the time. But we hammered them, I remember, 4-1 that season, 1-0.
Was John Barnes in that team?
Yeah,
was
Barnes played.
Ross Jenkins?
Yeah, centre forward.
Luther.
Tall Ross. Luther.
Luther.
Then in the later spell, he signed Mo Johnson, came down from Scotland. But a very well organised team. And Graham was a very good coach.
Yeah.
But we thought we were better than them because we played football.
Yeah.
And so when we won the ball, we started passing the ball. But anyway, we won the league, and I remember we had a very low-key presentation. It's not like the playoffs now. If you win the playoff, it's like you've won the cup. You know, and the 2 previous years to us getting promotion, we lost it by a whisker. The year before we lost it, we had to win at Bolton by 2 clear goals and hope that Swansea, led by Toshak, lost.
They went through all the leagues, didn't they?
Yeah, well, they
did that.
They also had the benefit of a big money behind them at the time, and they were signing ex-Liverpool players, if I remember rightly, 1 or 2 Yugoslavs, he introduced 1 or 2 Yugoslavs. But Swansea were a good team, but Swansea beat us. On that last game of the season, they won, and we had them to lose. And so that was a very big disappointment. But the following year, we won it by a mile.
So, David, following season, it's a battle to stay in the top flight, and it leads to one of the most famous last-day survivals. Luton's 1-0 win over Manchester City at Main Road, keeping Luton up and sending City down. What was going through your mind when you sprinted onto the pitch at the final whistle? Was it pure jubilation?
Well, the emotion, it was a strange thing, mate. My wife's father had died the day before. That was one thing. The second thing was, when I look back, how did that all of a sudden come out? Last-minute goal, which is also an incredible feeling to get the last-minute goal. But bear in mind that we'd fought for about 5 successive years to get up into that league. It wasn't easy. Each year we got better and better till we finally won it by a street. So it wasn't until the penultimate Saturday when we got beat at home by Everton 5-1 that we got into trouble. We weren't in trouble. The last game against Everton, but 4 other teams. It was an incredible sequence. 4 other teams, including Sunderland and Birmingham, won on that last Saturday to push us all of a sudden down into the relegation spots. It's incredible. We were below the line. We had 2 games to play. We had to go to Manchester United on the Monday. I'd agreed to play on the Tuesday, pre-agreed previously, for Riley, centre forward at Watford, a testimonial for Graham Taylor at Watford. And then we were travelling on the Friday it was the most amazing weekend of my life almost. So we went to Man United. We almost semi-accepted defeat because it was going to be a very difficult game. I played 2 youngsters, Parker and Daniel. And I remember speaking to Brian Horton on the Sunday, who was going to be the captain of the side, and he thought I should have played with the strongest. Anyway, regardless, we lost 3-0. On the Tuesday, against all the players' wishes, none of them wanted to travel 10 miles up the road to Watford and play against Watford in a testimonial. Can you imagine? The only advantage to me was that Brian Steen had a run out. He'd had a foot injury, and he came through it not too bad. So we knew that we could probably play him on the Saturday. On the Wednesday, I took him to a health farm to get out the way of everything that was going on. It was crazy. We were right in it. We were below the line. We travelled up on the Friday. I remember staying at a place called Tillington Hall at Stafford. And I wanted to be away from Manchester so the team could see all the supporters and all the buses going up to Manchester with the flags out the windows and the horns blaring, so they would feel that they weren't in isolation, even though there was going to be 30-odd thousand at Manchester that day. We got there, I think maybe, 2:45. It was packed out. Everyone was all ready. We played quite well. I had injuries. I had an on-loan goalkeeper, Godden. Paul Elliott was my centre-half that day.
Oh, wow.
We'd had an injury at centre-half. Ricky Hill didn't play, wasn't able to play. Anyway, the bottom line was my wonderful Yugoslav who came on as a sub, and they always said to me, "What do you want?" I said, "Just get us a goal, Raddy." I didn't have a paper with all these instructions and giving them where they have to stand. They're experienced professionals. He was a wonderful professional. And he scored the goal with a few minutes to go, and then we just went crazy. So I have no excuse for running on the pitch. But sadly, a lot of people think of me, because they've seen the clip a few times, run on the pitch. And they think, well, but they can't remember the fact that 5 years previously we'd got better and better and better. And in a lot of people's minds, we were one of the most attractive sides in the country,
David,
I believe.
I think if we'd have both stayed up on the last day, under all those circumstances, I'd have been running on the pitch and doing a dad dance as well, by the way, because it's understandable.
You can't control your emotions at times, Dave.
No,
everything you've said now leading up to that game, it's emotionally
we had so much on. We had so much to think about. It was
some weight off you.
Isn't it funny though, David? You've got to win, haven't you? So had you not won, you'd have been criticised for playing that game on the Tuesday.
Absolutely,
you'd have been criticised for going to a spa on Wednesday. You'd have been criticised for staying in Tillington.
I can remember Freddie Pye, the chairman at the time at Manchester City, saying, "This is terrible. We'll never recover from this." I said, "Mr. Pye," I said, "if we would have gone down, we would never recover. But you will recover. You're Manchester City."
Yeah.
Anyway, of course, the history of Freddie Pye at Manchester City. But the fact is, we not only stayed up, but the wonderful thing was they stayed up, and I think it was till 89, when they won the League Cup, beat Arsenal, which was another lovely victory for the club.
Yeah.
9 of those players
were yours.
It's a funny expression, were yours, were my lovely boys.
Yeah.
I'd left for Tottenham by that stage.
Tell me, David, 2 things. Do you still have the suit? And if you have, does it fit you?
Goodness, someone's got that suit, and if they're listening to this, can you send it back? No, the shoes went for quite a lot of money, £4,000.
Brilliant.
To the Luton Academy, and it's some lovely lady bought it in a glass case, and that's when the shoes went.
You never think of it at the time, do you, really?
Can he move as quickly?
No, how iconic those things would be now.
Yes, it's a strange thing.
All those years on, but it has to be years on.
People remember you for the wrong things. I wanted to be remembered for the fact that we always tried to play good football.
How difficult did you find it initially, from going from the second division to the first division?
I'll tell you when it all happened for us.
Go on.
It was a beautiful sunny day. It was at a place called Anfield. And we hadn't been to Anfield, most of my players, before. And it was a packed crowd.
Had you taken a team there before?
Yeah, no.
Oh, yeah,
no.
Go on. Yeah.
And they had top players, Dalglish. In time, it was. I've always said it was Hansen and Lawrenson, but it wasn't. When I looked up the records, it was Thompson that played as one of the centre-backs. Right. But they all played, Rush and Dalglish, Johnson, Mulby, whatever.
Yeah.
And Souness played. And it was a wonderful, wonderful game. I'll tell you the story. My goalkeeper got injured in the first half, Jake Finlay, and we had no subs. My my fullback, Kirk Stevens, went in goal. Now, you can imagine the crowd. There was a song at the time, Shaking Stevens was a pop star, and the cop gave him pelters. So my right back's in goal. We go in front at Liverpool. Can you imagine? We're in front at Liverpool. At half-time, when they come off, Stevens says, "I can't go on any longer." So he's gone in goal and he can't go on any longer. Who's going to take the gloves? Mal Donaghy, quiet, unassuming Irishman. Lovely boy, never said boo to a goose, never went out to warm up, went out at 5-3, left the ground 2 minutes after the kick-off. Came in a week and lovely boy, Mal Donaghy. Good Irish player, good Irish player. Anyway, so Mal Donaghy goes in goal, and the bottom line is it finishes 3-3. We play so well, it's not true. Both teams were applauded off that field. It was a wonderful, wonderful game. And that was the catalyst. I knew then that we could survive, and we did. It was that game at Liverpool that I felt proud. Wow. And I remember going into the boot room afterwards and going into this famous boot room with beer bottles all over the place and lovely scantily dressed women on the wall. and Paisley was there, and they were talking about me, talking about my players, how good they were. What about your boy Ricky Hill? And talking about all these. And then I realised after 15 minutes, they're asking me about my players. I found out nothing
about theirs,
and they found everything. And I always remember I was so bemused, bewitched, whatever you want to call it, by what they were. I was in the boot room.
Overawed, Dave.
Yeah. Overawed is the word. And I remember getting on the bus about 15 minutes after the players I'd told to get on the bus. And I'll never forget, for the first time ever, because they were all feeling pretty good. They'd drawn at Anfield, and they gave me the slow hand clap. I couldn't believe it. But it was Mossy, who had a dry sense of humour, who had started it. Yeah.
That started it for you then?
Yeah, well, we were on the way, and we thoroughly enjoyed it. And it was a good ride.
It's a good lift, though, isn't it? If you go to Anfield and get a point there,
yeah,
anything
it was,
at Anfield, especially for the team that had been promoted.
Yeah.
The Managers with Mick and Tony is powered by BOYLE Sports, the home of the early payout. And why is BOYLE Sports the home of the early payout? I hear you ask. Well, with BOYLE Sports, if your team goes 2 goals up, you win. Job done. You're getting paid out. Singles, ACCAs, bet builders, it's all covered. And this also means that we need to reconsider some crucial games across your careers, Mick and Tony. In fact, I'm going to take you back to the Britannia Stadium, Halloween 2009, the first time Mick McCarthy meets Tony Pulis in the Premier League. Stoke go 2-0 up. But Mick, your Wolves team come back, draw 2-2. And I'm sorry, Mick, I'm taking the point off you. Because of BOYLE Sports' new laws, I'm afraid Stoke won that game. Congratulations, Tony.
Thank you.
There you go. So get paid out as a winner if your team goes 2 goals ahead, even if they go on to win, lose or draw. 90 minutes only, applies to singles and multiples. 18 plus, T's and C's apply. Back yourself with BOYLE Sports, the home of the early payout. Head to boylesports.com or download the app to find out more.
After the Luton in 1986, you take over at Tottenham. They have Glenn Hoddle, Chris Waddle and quite a sensational Clive Allen, who scored 49 goals that season. How good were they?
Well, Clive, we just told to stay the width of the 18-yard box, which he did and was happy to do. Because I always said about Clive, was he brave? And he's a nice lad, and I get on very well with him.
Yeah.
Was
I
he
signed
brave?
him from Millwall. Yeah.
Not particularly. Was he good in the air? Not particularly, but he saw space and went for it. Was he quick? Not particularly. He just scored goals.
It's not a bad trait, Dave, is it?
He could turn on a sixpence around a box, and he had this vision. He knew where the posts were. Simple as that. So I remember going, when I first met Scholar, he said, what are you going to do with Ardiles? Ardiles was already getting on. I said, well, probably it's time for him to go. That was my first reaction before I'd actually seen him. And then, to be fair to Scholar, he said, well, don't ignore him. Make your judgment. Have a good look at him first.
Yeah.
Anyway, we lost a couple of players. So it was partly by chance. It wasn't by some miracle tactic. I thought, how can we do this? Hoddle wasn't the best at doing the other side of the game.
Yeah.
But he was a wonderful creative player, 2 feet, short and long, great vision. We played him as a second striker. He played a little bit short. So we had Waddle as the mesmeric outside right. He could beat people, gave him the dummy, right foot, left foot. Paul Allen, who was the ferret.
Yeah.
Ardiles was the link man.
Yeah.
Hodgie I signed, a workaholic on the left. He kind of covered outside left hand, inside left hand, left back at times when Mitchell Thomas was having a bad day. And then we just got better and better. We went to Oxford and we were on 4-2. And all of a sudden, Clements was in goal. All of a sudden, we've arrived. We went on a hell of a run. Everyone thought it was a wonderful attacking team, but we never conceded a goal.
Yeah.
We hardly conceded a goal. We had 2 great centre-halves. I signed Goffey, Richard Gough was a fine player. He could run all over the place, but he was still back at centre-half to get him away.
Yeah.
And he could play right back, he could play anywhere. He was very young at the time. And of course, he agitated in the end and he went back to Rangers and he won 9 champions. I used to ring him up, he used to ring me up. And I said, he's still getting medals. Actually, the truth is I tried to sign Butcher first.
Yeah.
Because I thought Mabbott and Butcher, a right footer and a left footer, would have been better.
Yeah.
Butcher turned, in the end, couldn't wait any longer, and he rang me from Heathrow Airport. He said, David, he said, I've got 750,000 both. They were both 750,000. And Bobby Ferguson was manager of Ipswich. And he always used to get my name mixed up, Bobby Ferguson. He used to say, "Hiya, Pete, how you doing?" I said, my name's Pleat, David Pleat, Bobby. My name's Pleat. Oh, well, sorry, Pleat. Fucking Bobby Ferguson. Anyway, so I was, and Bobby, anyway, he couldn't wait any longer, Butcher. And of course, Butcher went up there, and I think he won about 8 successive championships. 2 of them, Gough and Butcher together. But I would have had Butcher, and I've told Richard knows. Richard's now in America. After Butcher, I had Gough.
You'd have Gough.
Because Butcher went, so it made up my mind for me.
Yeah.
And at the last minute, Ken Bates, who was a bit of a, what's the wrong word? I can't think of a word.
Wheeler
I
dealer.
can't think of a word to describe him. It's not wheeler dealer. It's far worse than that.
Well, we'll leave it at that, shall we? Go on.
So Ken Bates, I was at Hadley Wood Hotel with one Sunday morning with Gough and his chairman, and all of a sudden, the usual story, they get a phone call. Whatever Tottenham are saying to you, we'll better the terms. I lost McAvenny, similar to John Lyle, who was a lovely man.
Yeah.
West Ham, he'd done me for McAvenny after I got him in a hotel at the Bedford Arms. Bedford Arms at Woburn, and he interfered, John Lyle, and I lost McAvenny. But anyway, yeah, so it was a fine team. Mabbott and Gough centre half. Right back was unlucky. Danny Thomas got injured.
Yeah.
Lovely chap he was. And then I had either Chris Hughton, who had also had injury,
Great career.
and Gary Stevens.
Yeah.
And in the '86 World Cup, I went as a pundit. That was my very first time of any punditry. It was very nice of ITV and invited me. So I was there in '86 when Maradona scored the hand of God.
Yeah.
That was my first punditry thing. But I remember there were 3 of them. Waddle from Tottenham. Waddle, Gary Stevens and Hoddle were in that World Cup squad in '86. Yeah.
You finished 3rd in Division 1 and reached the FA Cup final in 1987, only to lose to Coventry. Is that defeat the one that stings most in your career?
No, the thing that stings most was that I never got 1,000 games, mate. I'd have liked to have played another 20 games as a manager. That stings. I'd love to have had 1,000 games. No, of course it stings. Because we were favourites.
Dave,
we were favourites.
It doesn't make
quite
any
clear, does,
difference.
Dave, because you've questioned my 1,000 games since you came in here.
It doesn't make any difference.
We were favourites. We'd beaten Watford 4-1 in the semi-final.
Yeah.
I'd lost semi-final with Luton. Won that semi-final with Tottenham. We got into the final. We didn't play as well as we could. We started well. It was remembered more for an iconic moment. Holston shirts.
Yeah.
You may you may not remember. I ask people nowadays, everyone's speaking about the Holston shirts, but no one can remember who sponsored Coventry that day. In other words, whatever you have written on the front, people forget. They only remember who wins. Only remember who wins.
Do you? Are you like the rest of us that you remember defeats more than you remember victories?
It's straight. Well, defeat is lasting. Victory, you can't wait. That's it, and it's gone.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It's incredible.
You move on.
You remember your horrible moments.
So I do apologise for bringing that one up, David.
We lost.
It is in my script, so
it was in extra time. 3-2 in extra time, and I'm going to tell you, a lovely referee who I quite like.
It was an unbelievable game.
Is passed away, Neil Midgley, made a terrible decision on the halfway line when Kilcline of Coventry really whacked our player. Terrible injury. We played on as best we could. Kilcline stayed on and then had to go off because he was injured, but it should have been a red card.
Right.
We would have been playing 10 men. And the strange thing was Graham Rodger came on for Kilcline as a sub for them and had a hand in their winning goal, which was an own goal. I think David Bennett crossed it, Mabbott went for it, and it squirmed off his thigh or whatever into past Ray Clements.
So it hasn't
terrible day.
It hasn't stuck with you at all, then, David. No.
It was terrible. The worst thing was.
I'm sorry for bringing it up.
But the worst
he
thing
won't sleep tonight now, Mick.
The worst thing was the following morning, Scholar said we're having a board meeting because of this Holston business. And they accused more or less the manager of having some conspiracy with the players, that some of the players purposely didn't wear the shirts with the thingy. It wasn't true. It was proved not true in the end. Of course it wasn't. And the poor secretary lost his job, and the kit man, Johnny Wallace, who got an MBE, I think, he was put down to the reserves.
Yeah.
The whole thing was a terrible mess. But chance having a board meeting the morning after a cup final.
Defeat.
And torrential rain, I remember that. And the bedraggled players had to get on a bleeding bus and walk and go on a blinking ceremonial.
Let's move on, Mick.
I know. Anyway,
relax, Dave.
We had to go to the town hall and wave to 5 supporters after we've just lost the cup final.
Oh wow! Your time at Tottenham comes to an end.
Yep.
Given how well you did during your first season, how hard was that to take?
Yeah, it was very difficult. It was a difficult time for me, a difficult time for my family. I just couldn't cope with the newspaper stories that were emanated from one man's whisper, rumour.
Yeah.
And as a consequence of that, really, I couldn't cope with the publicity. Was really difficult for the club as well. And I remember speaking to Brian Moore and Norman Giller, 2 lovely men. And I had a choice. I could have gone to Olympiakos in Greece, could have gone to a couple of other clubs. And they said, stay at home, and that's what you do best. And I had to come down, you could say, Championship, Leicester City.
Yeah, I went to Leicester, yeah.
How did you find that, Dave?
Leicester has inherited some good players.
Yeah.
Gary McAllister.
Yeah.
Ali Moughlan to a certain extent, Russell Osman, surely, and Mike Newell, who I'd signed from Wigan for Luton, and now I found him at Leicester.
Yeah.
But I added to that team very quickly. I added Peter Weir.
Yeah.
On Alex's help from Aberdeen. Alex was at Manchester then, but he spoke well of Peter. Bit of a loner, but a fine crosser of a ball. A lad called Cross, who I listened to, my recruitment man from Walsall, Nicky Cross. We did so well it wasn't true. The last game was at Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough Riot wanted promotion. His centre-halves, I think, were Pallister and Cooper, would it be? They wanted promotion. They wanted to beat us in the last game. Full house at Ayresome Park. We played magnificent. We won 2-1. We'd gone from right at the bottom of the league. I'd taken over from a nice man, Brian Hamilton.
Yeah.
And we'd gone right from the bottom of the league at Leicester. I was appointed at Christmas, went right up to about 6th position. We were made favourites for the following season, because you know what happened. The best player, the crux of the team, which was Russell Osman, freedom of contract, he went to Southampton.
Yeah.
I thought I'd got a good deal at the tribunal. Russell said that I must be like wine, I must mature like wine, because Leicester had signed for 150. I got about 350 for him. And I thought I'd done a good deal. But I made a right mess of trying to replace him. But my team, I had a good team, but then the following season, Gary wanted to go, and he deserved to go. He was a top-class lad, top-class player.
After a spell at Leicester, with all that going on, you returned to Luton in 1991.
91 to 95, I think. Yeah, Luton, I remember that.
Yeah,
young players, 1 or 2 players over the top, Dreyer, Peake, 1 or 2 experienced players who had just had their time. And we did reasonable, but we got to a cup semi-final. We played Chelsea at Wembley, one of the first to play
FA Cup semi-final in 94.
Lost 2-0, Cascarino, Peacock. We didn't play well.
Yes.
I always remember Glenn was in charge of Chelsea, and I didn't think he was too, after the game. Because I'd had him as a player. Perfect word, magnanimous. Magnanimous, good word, after the game. But regardless, we lost the semi-final. And I have to say, had we played at Villa Park, we'd beaten West Ham, we'd beaten Newcastle, we were second division. We'd done really well to do what we did in that cup run. Had the game been played at Hillsborough or Villa Park, we would have done better. My chairman and the board were arguing for weeks before that final at Wembley about tickets. And in the end, they thought they were in the final. I kept telling the players it's a semi-final, but we're at Wembley. Yeah. And they thought it was a day for suits and ties and wives come in and they were celebrating mentally too.
It was a strange time that for semi-final. Well, semi-finals being at the place where the final plays, I still don't think it's right.
I don't either.
It's only for money for the FA.
Absolutely.
It has to be, you know.
We took I took Stoke to a semi-final at Wembley against Bolton.
Yes, I know.
And the players come and seen me before the semi-final and asked for suits and ties and this, and I said, you can run and jump. We're playing a semi-final, not a final. Yeah. When we turned up, Dave,
young players.
When we turned up, Bolton had suits, ties. I didn't have to do a team talk.
Yeah, should never have played. I think we played on the Saturday, then Oldham. I think played Man United on the Sunday that year. 2 semi-finals. Good money for the FA.
Yeah.
A good excuse not to go to Hillsborough and Villa Park. Villa Park was an iconic semi-final.
Yeah, the treatment.
Well, the two were, weren't they? And Anfield.
Hillsborough.
Hillsborough and...
Highbury.
No, Highbury. Highbury was semi-finals as well.
I know. I remember seeing Jim Smith there, Portsmouth, and
Yeah.
Portsmouth play. Who did Portsmouth play there? It was at Ipswich. I remember Darren Anderton playing well. Wonderful support Portsmouth had. Jim Smith was manager.
Yeah.
We're giving out now to the FA that they shouldn't have semi-finals at Wembley. We usually can have a dig at somebody on this podcast. Anyway, in 1995, you take over at Sheffield Wednesday, and during your spell there, you brought Paolo Di Canio to the Premier League.
I went to Scotland. I remember I got a taxi from the airport to the Albany Hotel. Had a coffee. It was early. Taxi driver said, he said, you made a mistake today, Mr. Pleat. They all know the play. Every taxi driver in Glasgow knows who you are. You made a mistake today. I think Di Canio's not playing. So I pretended I didn't know Di Canio. Why? Oh, he's our best player. We've only got one bloody player here. It's got another taxi, Albany to the ground, another taxi driver. Same thing. You wasted your journey today. I thought, can 2 taxi drivers be wrong? I don't know. Saw the team sheet. For sure, he's not playing. Left 10 minutes early, which you do to get that plane back from Glasgow to Heathrow. 3rd taxi driver coming back. Wasted journey today then. A great player. He's the only player we've got. He's got a big argument with Fergus McCann. You'll be able to buy him. So I never saw him. I got back to Sheffield on the Tuesday. David Richards, not one of my best chairmen, came in. Well, David, what are we going to do about Di Canio? I said, Chairman, you've got to sign him. I think it was terrific. 3 taxi drivers can't be wrong. I didn't tell him that. I knew that. I'd heard enough. So I heard enough.
Those
Glaswegian
taxi drivers do know everything.
They know everything.
Yeah, absolutely, they do.
You know from Celtic.
Yeah.
So I had him in the club. Then I realised he was on his own, and I had the rest of the dressing room. I'll get him a friend, Carboni. Carboni it was who was saying about Di Canio. Carboni came first from Roy Hodgson at Inter Milan. And I all remember ringing Roy and saying, tell me about, because we British managers were honest with each other.
All the time.
Always honest with each other. We wouldn't delude anyone. We tell the truth. So I rang Roy. He said, we're on the bus coming back from wherever it was, Fiorentina. He said, he's been subbed today. He said, he's sulking. He's on the back seat sulking. He said, that's what he is, but he's a good player. I signed him. Size 6 boots. He could hit the ball 25 yards in the air, catch it on his foot, dead. Skillful player, gave the goalkeeper the eyes, but he played when he wanted.
Yeah.
And it was the same with Di Canio. I signed Carboni to say, I want you to play wide. Within 2 games, he says, I'm not a wide player, I want to play inside.
Inside, yeah.
Problem.
Yeah.
Got Di Canio, got the 2 of them together. Didn't work because of, shall we say, the harmony in the dressing room.
Yeah.
But he was a player. The second last game he played, Di Canio and Carboni, played them together up front at Villa, an away game. I was really thrilled the way they played together. They played so well together. We drew 2-2. And I remember saying to a director, Joe Ashton, he's dead now, I think we've got something here. 2 games later, we played another home game. Then we went to Man United. We were 4-0 down at half-time. I took them both off. They never tried a leg. Why, I don't know. Peter Shreve was my assistant. I took them both off. We did much better in the second half. We only lost 2-1. We lost 6-1. That was it. That was the last one. That was the last game at Sheffield. 6-1 at United was the last game.
I wonder what they did. In the dressing room when you took them both off together. They'd been mourning like a drain about you.
He used to throw his boots way before Beckham's time. He threw boots. He would.
What about in training, Dave? What were they like? What handling him personally training?
No, he trained, but he was excitable. He would go have a go at someone who couldn't trap the ball. You know, he could volley it. He had all this. He had all a lovely feeling about him, and he really sweated. He worked hard in training, Carboni was a little bit more the junior partner, shall I say? It was like the father to the boy.
How did the English lads get on with them, Dave?
So. They respected them for their ability, but for some of the tantrums,
tolerated.
Some of the tantrums weren't really acceptable. I had a difficult dressing room when I went to Sheffield Wednesday. Richard said to me they'd just been in 2 cup finals, lost them both with Ron, both to Arsenal, weren't they? I think. Yeah. And it was a difficult dressing room. I had internationals. I had Hursty. On his day, he could be fantastic. Another day, he couldn't run. Yeah. Strange. He was either brilliant or poor. Yeah. Mark Bright. Mark was a nice lad, very opinionated when he was a player. I get on well with him now. Des Walker. John Sheridan was a superb player, but he'd got no legs. He could pass the ball, put on like a hoddle on a sixpence.
Free kicks and corners.
He was super. Yeah. But I called him a Central League international. I used to go and watch the reserves just to watch him. Yeah. But I couldn't play him in the team because he didn't have the legs. Yeah. And in the second year, I had people like workers, Whittingham, Atherton, Briscoe, Hyde, honest boys, lesser players, but the team was better.
Better team, yeah.
And we started brilliantly. I put a young kid called Humphreys in at centre forward. He went like a bomb. We won the first 4 games. Funny enough, it was Glenn, I think, who decided who was the manager of the month, and it had to be me at Sheffield Wednesday. And anyway, it was a sad finish. The last game was against Roy Evans of Liverpool. It was a draw. My goalkeeper, Clark, got sent off for handling outside the box. David Ellery, the pompous referee, he sent him off. I spoke years later to David Ellery, said he had no choice because the linesman flagged, the goalkeeper was out the box. Yeah. I think it was Kevin Pressman. Anyway, Clark went in goal. Redknapp scored the free kick from it, and we drew 1-1. That was sad. That was the last game. I had a feeling the board had a good bet on us finishing in the top 4. Yeah. I had a feeling about that, and I could sense it in the boardroom. Anyway, we finished 6th. Oh. It wasn't bad for Sheffield Wednesday, let me tell you.
Yeah, they'd be doing somersaults now.
We started well, and we finished 6th. But the following season started going astray again, and that's what happens.
The Managers with Mick and Tony is powered by BOYLE Sports, the home of the early payout. And why is BOYLE Sports the home of the early payout? I hear you ask. Well, with BOYLE Sports, if the team you back goes 2 goals up, you win, job done, you're getting paid out. Singles, ACCAs, bet builders, it's all covered. And this means we need to reconsider a crucial game in your career, Tony. I'm talking, of course, about the 1999 playoff final when your Gillingham team were 2 goals up with 5 minutes to play. Obviously, that means, in the eyes of BOYLE Sports, you have now won the Second Division playoff final, 1999. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And also, West Ham won the 2006 FA Cup final, which is great. And commiserations to Liverpool for not winning the 2005 Champions League. And obviously, now Gillingham have won the 1999 Second Division playoff final. Commiserations to Nicky Weaver and Manchester City. Yes, get paid out as a winner if your team goes 2 goals ahead, even if they win, lose or draw. 90 minutes only. Applies to singles and multiples. 18 plus. T's and C's apply. Back yourself with BOYLE Sports, the home of the early payout. Head to boylesports.com or download the app to find out more.
After leaving Sheffield Wednesday, he returned to Tottenham in 1998, this time as Director of Football, under the ownership of Sir Alan Sugar. Was Sir Alan as uncompromising as he comes across on the TV?
He was brusque, he could be quirky, he was very bright, he was a visionary. He didn't understand the game, the ball, or probably Alan, that side of it he didn't know, but he didn't interfere. I mean, he didn't know the players. Him and Sheepshanks were the first ones to suggest to the LMA, sent a long letter, why we should have a director of football. Most of the press, the popular press in this country, thought this is crazy. The manager should be in full control of everything. But in Italy, they were already having sporting directors and this type of... And eventually, I was the first. And I remember Harry ringing me, he was with Mandaric at Portsmouth at the time, and saying, Dave, what is this football director supposed to do? I said, Harry, it's the most brilliant job in the world. The strategy of the club, the young players, the academy, the philosophy of the club. You help appoint the manager if there has to be a manager. You're a director. It's a wonderful, it's almost an accolade. You should be, all I do is chauffeur Mandaric about. I said, Harry, it's the wrong job for you. You've got to be manager again. Of course, he was. A few weeks later, Rixie.
He took over from Graham Rix.
Graham Rix. So Harry was never a director of football, but he took over from Graham Rix. So so Sugar was interesting, people were in awe of Sugar to a certain extent. I remember, we used to, when we had the board meetings, he used to have his grapes and his celery, and he used to walk around the boardroom like talking to they were sitting at the table as he was walking around giving him his ideas. It was all right. Alan Sugar was okay.
Who was your manager, Dave?
Well, the first manager was, believe it or not, Christian Gross. Christian Gross came, and he was a disciplinarian and a decent guy, but the players wouldn't have him. There was a lot of what Gordon Lee once told me a story about his old players at Newcastle. He called them the arty crafties. They get to 34, 35, 36. They know they're fading out the game. It's hard for them, but there's a new breed of player coming through the club, and they're difficult players to deal with. And I had that at Tottenham. People like in that spell, we had strikers. We had Les was fine. We had Darren Anderton. We had Everson. We had Crouchy, funny enough, was in the academy, but I had nowhere for Crouchy to go. He'd come out of the academy. We had 6 strikers.
He went to QPR, didn't he?
Yes, I gave him 60,000 to QPR. He wanted to go. Jerry Francis liked him. He went there pre-season. He went there. Well, I got 2 sell-ons. I think we finished up with about 400.
Yeah.
But Crouchy did very well. Good luck to him. And I have to say, it was more or less my decision because I couldn't see him getting opportunities, and I wasn't going to loan him again.
Yeah.
I'd already loaned him, and I was really the one who allowed him to go. Retrospectively, maybe a mistake. And I will say this, the coaches at the time who were in the academy, more or less to a man, said we should keep him another year.
Yeah.
Even though he was out of that stage.
Yes.
And did I have a prejudice because he was tall and gangly? Not really, I don't think so.
What was your relationship like with the manager?
After Christian Gross...
Glenn comes,
George.
Oh, George Graham.
George Graham came. And that was because his agent wanted him back in London from Leeds.
Yes. Because he'd done a good job at Leeds, hadn't he?
I got on well with George.
Yeah.
I knew him from a long time back from schoolboy internationals. I got on well with George. You could talk to George. George was quite easy to conversation with and to argue with, or shall I say discuss. So George was good for me. But unfortunately, and I knew the problem, 1-0 to the Arsenal. The way we played wasn't the Tottenham way. The Tottenham way was glory. Even if they won 4-3, they could go home talking about who? Van der Vaart, Modric, Gascoigne, Ginola, wonderful players. There was always a player at Tottenham.
Yeah.
Now I don't think they've got anyone who they can hang the hat on.
Yeah.
Kane's gone. Son's gone.
Yeah.
You need someone that those supporters can come and look forward to on a Saturday afternoon.
So your relationship with George
was quite good.
Was good. In what respect? Tell me in what respect.
In that we could discuss properly at any level, whether it be tactics or individual players. It must be a football man who's had the experience of it, but has come to the stage where he understands that it's not for him anymore. Because a lot of the managers would be wary of a man who's with a football background, who's a director, who is thinking, hang on, he might be looking to take
David,
my job.
We sit in here and give directors of football stick on a regular basis, so I'll have to admit that. So I'm asking, what makes a good one? And I always think it's got to be the relationship that you have.
100%.
He has to be sensible. He has to be the conduit. You could say David Dean was in a kind of way at Arsenal. The conduit between the manager and the board. He has to be fair to both sides. I had some terrible problems. I can remember Tim Sherwood. Glenn wouldn't let him train with the first team, pushed him aside on the basis of, I didn't sign him, he's not my player.
Yeah.
Which is really not right. Because as Alan Sugar said, that's what he's come into. He's inherited those players. He's got to get the best out of those players. Never mind who signed them.
Yeah.
And I remember I had real problems with Tim. It's in my book, which I've written. And when Tim came to see me and said, John Gorman was a quiet man, nice man.
John,
Glenn's assistant, who really, it's a bit unkind, I wouldn't say boo to a goose, but if Glenn had a problem, usually it came back to me through John. And I remember this problem with Tim. It was an incredible story, really, because Tim insisted on seeing the chairman. I said, you can't, Tim. I'm the man to see. You're not happy. You're going to have to sort it out with Glenn. You'll have to talk man to man, like properly. Anyway, he eventually went to Portsmouth. But before that, Tim then wanted to see the chairman. And I said, no. Anyway, got the PFA. And it was the most incredible. When I look back, I couldn't stop it. But he came to a board meeting with Bobby Barnes. And
from the PFA.
The PFA. And he sat round the table. They called him in and he sat round the table with Bobby Barnes. And we had to listen to Tim's, what's the word? Reasoning.
I'll keep helping you, Dave.
And
appropriate words you need.
Appropriate words, that's it, Mr. Malaparism. And it came to, in the end, that it wasn't good for Glenn. It wasn't good for Glenn. But Glenn was Glenn was a real football man. But a lot of people were in awe of Glenn, and I still think they are to a certain extent, because he was such a great player. He had this charisma, not charisma, that's the wrong word, but he had this kind of feeling of untouchable. He was
an aura around him.
An aura.
Yeah.
And some people, because when people speak to them, they say, "Well, what do you want of me? What are you after?" As though, so the people who thought they were his friends who weren't his really friends.
Why we argue, the two of us argue about assistant directors of football, is people who have maybe not played the game, Dave, are in that position. They haven't got a really strong relationship with the manager or the coach. And if the chairman goes to them after a bad defeat, they'll stick with the chairman. Where I think their responsibility is then to back the manager up.
Of course.
And help the manager as much as possible.
And
there's some good ones.
To make the board understand the problems that the manager might be having.
And I think that happens too often in our game.
Well, because they've come through a different, maybe a university, data, systems, very educated people. They're not what we call, which is a very dangerous word, this, football people.
It's not dangerous at all.
They haven't had the empathy. They haven't had the empathy with players. They don't know the problems that players might have. They don't understand tactics. They just, what's the word? They haven't got this feeling. We have a feeling for the game because we've been in it all our lives. And it came from when we were in the dressing room as kids, listening to other people. When we became managers, we spoke to other managers who were higher up than ourselves. Yep. And that's why we relatively succeeded in the game, had longevity in the game. Why? Because we were sensible enough to speak to other people and to learn and listen to other people.
Well, so in 2003, you thrusted back into the dugout at Tottenham following Glenn Hull's departure. Given the way you left in 1987, did that second opportunity feel like good karma in a way?
Well, yes, in a way I was pleased to go back, but it's a wonderful club, no question. It's a big club, it's a wonderful club. Bill Nicholson I spoke to on many occasions. It was Tottenham had an aura. I remember the first caretaker spell, that was 6 games. I think we won 3, drew 2, lost 1. But Alan Sugar wanted George Graham.
Yes.
I remember him saying to me in his house, what's the worst possible case with George Graham? I said, well, A, George may not play the football that the crowd like. And B, tell me what Mr. Ridsdale of Leeds is asking for in compensation, because that was part of my brief, money, and told me the figure. And I said, well, that's not too bad. If that's your decision, he's the chairman.
Yeah.
If you really want George, I will support him all the way.
Yeah.
Which I did do.
Yes.
In the end, that didn't work out mainly, or as much as anything, because George had a coterie, might be the word, with friends in the press, and there were stories getting out about Tottenham and basically about how frugal the club was being on transfer fees.
Yes.
And his major friend was Jeff Powell of the Daily Mail at the time. Yeah. And there was all sorts of stories emanating in the press about Tottenham. And evidently it was being fed indirectly from George.
Yeah.
So we had this massive case at the law courts. Sugar won the case. I think he won the case fairly. And the Associated Newspapers lost the case. But I think when Enoch took over from Alan Sugar, I really do believe that one of the not rules, one of the provisions of them taking over was that George leaves. But George was then on a sticky wicket. He was also having a very bad spell. And then I had a further spell. It was a terrible position when I took over. We've had hardly. I think it was 2 or 3 points from about 7 or 8 games. It was a really poor start, and they decided. Listen, it wasn't like a vote. It was almost a unanimous thing that it was time. They had to make a change. You know how supporters start shouting?
Yes.
And when there's 40,000 shouting, it doesn't matter if Glenn's the Messiah. You know, even the Messiah has to go. So we decided to change the manager. So I was asked to go to Italy to see Mancini, who was then just beginning and starting on his managerial career. It was before he would come to Leicester, I think he became, and Trapattoni. I like Mancini as very smart, aristocratic type of handsome guy. Had lovely paintings in his flat in Rome.
Yeah.
And Trapattoni could hardly speak English. Anyway, we decided a more experienced man was required, and Mark Hughes was going to come as his assistant. Dennis Roach was the agent for Mark Hughes. Mark Hughes decided through Dennis that he didn't want to be a number 2. He would only come as a number 1. Mark was just beginning to make waves quite successfully with Wales.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we decided Trapattoni came to England, came to a board meeting. We spoke to him. He stayed and watched the game against Birmingham City in a League Cup game. Stefan Dalmat played very well in that game, and he liked our centre-back, Ledley King, young centre-back. And the following morning, we had this meeting, and he said he quite likes it, but he'd give us a decision within a few days. The few days turned out to be 2 weeks. He gave us the excuse that his wife wasn't too well, and it may not be for him. So he didn't take it. So the board said to me, if you take it for the moment, can you guarantee us that it won't be relegated? So, of course, I said, we won't be relegated. I'd say that now with 7 games to go.
Yeah.
They won't be relegated. And it was kind of an incentive for me and a wonderful opportunity for me. I'm back in the
hot seat.
The hot seat, yeah.
On the hot seat. Anyway, the bottom line was we didn't go down. I had 2 Irish boys, Robbie Keane, who I was very responsible for signing and persuading Glenn Hoddle from Leeds United. Leeds were in the mess money-wise. I signed Robbie Keane, make no mistake. But Glenn accepted that. That was the one time I you could say, interfered.
Yeah.
Glenn said, but where would I play him? I said, Glenn, it doesn't matter. He's stock. We're getting him for X, very good price. He's a top player. He's young. He'll add value to all the other players, and before long, he'll be in the team. As long as it's not out my budget, that's the usual. As long as it's not.
So, I would have said with Robbie, play him up front and he'll score goals for you. That's where he plays.
So the story went on. So at Christmas, Robbie Keane and Kari came to me and said, I remember we're going back through the Blackwall Tunnel, back from Charlton to Tottenham. The lads would like to go to Dubai for a holiday. I think they deserved it. So I made a mistake. I said, if the club wants to do that and you want to go to Dubai, they went. I think it was Dubai. It could have been the other place, Abu Dhabi. I think it was Dubai. I didn't go. Mistake. Chris Houghton went with the secretary, and I found out afterwards it was very cliquey. Anyway, we slowly slowly dropped down. And this is, funny enough, Gus Poyet was involved at the time. And fortunately, we dropped down and they were talking about relegation with about 8 games to go. We were talking about just very similar to the situation now. But we pulled up. I remember taking them to a place near Colchester where 5 Lakes.
Oh, yeah.
5 Lakes. For 2 days.
The LMA have had dues there, haven't they?
I think that was the best thing I did, and it was too late. It was about with 3 games to go. I took them there, and we had 2 good days, and I really got into it because it was getting late, and we won the last 2. We won Blackburn, and we beat Wolves. Anyway, we stayed up.
My predictions this week start in the Premier League. I'm going for Brighton to beat Wolves. Brighton have still got a hell of a lot to play for at the top end of the table, whereas Wolves are already relegated. So I think Brighton will have the bit between their teeth, and I really do fancy them there. And the next one is big London derby with both teams fighting for their lives, really. West Ham at the bottom of the league, still fighting and to stay up, and Arsenal, who are fighting to win the title. I think it'll be a really, really tight game. I'm just going for that quality that Arsenal have got over West Ham. So I'm going West Ham to get beat, Arsenal to win that game. I don't think there'll be much in it, but I think they'll win the game. My third game is up north. I'm going for Dundee to beat Livingston. Livingston at the bottom of the league, nothing to play for. The season's finished. I just think home advantage will see Dundee through. Then my last game is a playoff game, and the playoff games are so hard to call at times. And this one, looking at all the games, is going to be so close, I think. Both teams will win their home games. Chesterfield are at home against Notts County to start with, and I think Chesterfield will just nick it and beat them at home, but it'll be a different story away from home. £10 returns £76.64, including the Acca Boost from BOYLE Sports.
Hi Tom, hi everybody. My predictions for this week. I've got 4 Premier League fixtures, which I'm not sure if I'm being brave or stupid, but anyway, here they are. Manchester City to beat Brentford. Brentford had a great season under Keith Andrews. He's got my vote for Manager of the Year. Fantastic achievement what he's done in his first job. But they're playing Manchester City, who can still win the Premier League, fighting for that against Arsenal. I can't see them letting Brentford off the hook at home. So Manchester City to beat Brentford. Liverpool to beat Chelsea at home. Neither team have been playing particularly well. Liverpool lost in a poor performance in the first half, bit better second to Manchester United. Chelsea won their last game after a run of defeats. I think that Liverpool crowd will drive them on to beat them at home. They won't want to finish in a whimper, so I'm taking Liverpool to beat Chelsea. And then Nottingham Forest, who are playing at home to Newcastle. But Nottingham Forest, like Crystal Palace, playing each other in that Europa League playoff final. So I've got Newcastle to beat Forest. Reasons being because they're playing 3 days before the fixture. Newcastle have not been doing great, but they won to beat Brighton at the weekend. So I'm taking them to beat Nottingham Forest away. And then Crystal Palace versus Everton. Everton to beat Crystal Palace away. Taking a big risk, I guess, but for similar reasons. 3 days after the Europa League playoff final. If they've won it, they'll be flying, but they'll be knackered after it. And if they lost, they'll be devastated. So Crystal Palace at home, Everton to beat them. £10 returns, £178.64, including the Acca Boost from BOYLE Sports. Go look, everybody. All the best. So you stayed up, but you left Tottenham after a role as a scout for 14 years in 2024.
14 years, amazing.
It's been a rough ride from over the past couple of years. Well, what's gone wrong and what needs changing? That's a big question. But how do you feel about it? Rather than giving us...
Well, I'll give you a good friend of mine says the fish rots from the top.
Yes,
Sorry,
I remember somebody else saying that to me.
Rots from the head, I believe.
Yeah.
And I can only say, at any football club that goes down, it's mismanagement. And its mismanagement usually comes from the top, because the top management have appointed the wrong middle management. And in amongst the middle management is people like recruitment, where the people at the very top have to take the words of the recruitment people, have to give them the money that they request, whether it's agent-driven or not. And you, over a period of time, if you buy more, in retrospect, poor players than good players, you lose your job. That's what's happened at Tottenham. They've got players who aren't good enough for Tottenham.
Dave.
And they've bought in the other market. Whereas this sensible club like Arsenal go and buy 100 million from West Ham, the very best player, and can make a difference, we would have 100 million to spend. And they've spent money, Tottenham, they've spent good money, but they'd spend it on 4 at 25 million. And I personally feel if I have 100 million to spend, I would spend it on maybe 2 players or 1 player. And John Lyall taught me that many, many years ago at West Ham, where he said every year, make sure your contracts don't run out, or even only 1 or 2 at the most, but make sure you don't sign too many players every summer. Maybe 2, maybe 1. That was John Lyle told me that so many years ago.
Do you think the players have I know they have a responsibility though. That I always see it's the manager that always gets the tin tack. He's the one that costs him his job. But over recently, we've talked about this before. Like some of the players coming off and not even looking at Thomas Frank and not even shaking his hand coming off. Just the way some of them I've seen behavioural, shall we say, with players.
But can I?
They have to take responsibility for that.
I totally agree with what Mick said. My take on this, Dave, and you've talked about the top and middle bracket management. The coach the manager is the most important person in a football club in respect of the relationship with the chairman and his players. If you get that right, you've got a chance of being successful. If you get so many people in between the coach or the manager and the chairman who are doing stuff, I think you've almost implied with agents and people who are not and don't understand the game, have been buying players who the coach might not want for his team and the way he wants to play. I find it absolutely amazing that they've had Mourinho, they've had Conte, they've had top managers there. Top managers, Dave. And no one has talked about the people in between to the top. Everything is, another manager's gone. Who appointed these managers?
They can't all be bad.
Now, Dave, they can't all be bad. Now, I've looked at certain things about Tottenham. Tottenham have spent a lot of money, but their wage bill is outside the top 6 in the Premier League.
Just outside.
So they're just outside. So they've spent a hell of a lot of money on buying players, as you've said, but they've really managed the budget, the financial budget, the wage budget year after year. So they've kept that at a level, whereas other clubs, like you say, have spent and their wage bill has gone up. My issue is, who are the people? Because they've changed director of football, they've changed the people in charge of the algorithms they've made so many different changes. If you're making changes there, Dave, and you're making changes with a coach all the time, you've got absolutely no chance of being successful. None whatsoever. You can't tell me that Tottenham haven't spent more than Brighton or Brentford or Bournemouth. You can't. Yet people are saying it's always down to the manager. It's always down to if they've brought players in that are not good enough, haven't got the right character.
I think sensible people know that, but it's always the manager that carries the can, as we know from years past.
We always do, David. That's certain. We carry the can, and that's it. I'm just looking behind you. Just one more goal.
Yes,
your book there.
My book. Yeah.
Yeah. So how's it gone? Has it gone well?
During COVID. I'm just trying to think. I think it was Bob Harris, the journalist. He wanted to write my book. I said, I'm not ready to write it. He said, but by the time you write it, people will forget about you. I said, if they forget about me, so be it. I'll still write my book because I want to relate my experiences. And there are certain things in there that people, from my experiences, some of which I might have said, can learn from if they were perhaps young managers, believe it or not.
Are there any mistakes in there that they might learn from?
People make mistakes all the time.
Because we've eked out of you so much goodness of your career.
There's mistakes, but there's no misspellings. Because
leave that to me, Dave.
I'll tell you the truth. During COVID, I really got down to it. And I wrote it myself.
Yeah.
But then I wrote a foreword for Brian Horton's book with a man called Tim Rich, a journalist up the north. Very good journalist, and I quite liked him. And so he looked at all what I wrote, and he dotted the I's and crossed the T's, and he put a bit of colour in it. For example, if I was writing about something at a certain date, there might be a very couple of lines there.
And he found out,
that was the date when Tony Pulis resigned from Stoke City after 2 periods or whatever it was. So there was a little bit of colour there people can relate to the years, because I can remember events very, very well. But I sometimes can't remember the dates clearly, all the years, which is interesting.
Well, let me just tell you, Tony and I are looking forward to a signed copy. I'm sure you've brought them with you.
And if you haven't brought one, you're sending one, Dave.
Do you know
I'll never speak to you again if you don't.
And so my poor wife died of MND, and so the proceeds go to
Fantastic.
MND. So I was going to sign this book, get you to raffle it, get nice money from the raffle, and then maybe send them money to MND.
We'll do whatever we can.
But I'm going to leave this book with you anyway. So at the moment, you can argue over it and decide who wants to.
He's the biggest and the strongest.
But I can tell you, it's some of it's quite interesting.
I'm sure it is. Listen, the whole interview's been, interview chat. It's not an interview because you just talked about it. It's been brilliant. We've been loved having you on, Dave. So thanks for
we haven't even spoke about the academy.
Yeah, it's astonishing the way you remember stuff. Absolutely fantastic.
I think we do as well. We do because it's moments in our life, particularly winning and losing, and it's the drama in our life.
Yeah.
People have such ordinary, mundane lives. Horrible, have to say. People who work in factories who look forward so much to football. Their whole life is supporting their team. And we've been on the ground floor. Our whole lives, we've been so lucky.
We have.
And we got paid for it.
And now we can talk about it as well, which is even better still.
And not worry about who we talk about.
And people, well, we'll soon find out.
Yeah. As soon as we turn the mics off, Dave, you can tell us the truth.
Dave, thanks for coming in. You've been a great guest. Thank you very much.
Well done, Dave.
Pleasure. Thank you.